They are.
So where are y'all from?
I'm from North Carolina.
Really?
He's from Kansas. I'm from, if you know where App State University is?
Absolutely.
Yep. That's the corner of my world right there.
Rock on.
So live in the very top corner. He's from Kansas City.
Gotcha.
He loves the Kansas City.
A little flatter than
Chiefs.
Appalachian.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, not a Chiefs fan.
No.
You're not a Chiefs fan,
Not a Chiefs fan.
but they're playing so well.
You know, somebody posted something like, who would you get rid of in the NFL? And it was like a picture of Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, like Sean Payton, I don't know, somebody else, Pete Carroll, something like that. And the entire thread, it was somebody local in Kansas City. She's a real estate agent. The entire thread was Bill Belichick. Like just over and over and over and over and over. Whole lot of peanut butter and jelly in this thread. Whole lot of peanut butter and jelly.
Well, I mean, I don't know. The Pats aren't.
They'll be fine.
He's a big Pats fan.
Is he now?
Yeah, and
We have some skin in that game. How's Mac Brown doing for you?
Mac Jones.
Mac Jones.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He's doing good. He's awesome this year. He was good last year too. Everybody kind of hated on him, but he had no offensive coaching last year. He just had to go out there and wing it. It was terrible. It didn't look good. It was frustrating. It was sloppy. You watch the there's a bunch of great YouTube channels now. Have you ever seen the QB School?
I've not.
I can't remember the guy's name. He was a backup quarterback, and he does like very detailed breakdown of what the quarterback's seeing, what play they're running, how the defense is going to play it, why the throw is made in the game. It's insane.
Yeah.
To see the nuances and the intricacies of every single play, because you're just seeing giant men just smash into each other.
Right.
And either they do well or they don't. And you're either cheering or you're like, oh, okay, next play. But there's so much to each play. And so he breaks it down in a very concise fashion, makes it understandable. It's very interesting to watch. And last year, another quarterback that had done the same thing was Kurt Warner. He has a similar YouTube channel. And he breaks down the place, and he did the Pats Vikings game, and the whole time he's like, "There's no spacing here. Like, where's he supposed to throw the ball? This is the way that the play is designed. You have no spacing. You're stacking the receivers on top of each other, and there's just a massive like, where do you throw the ball? And he just play after play after play,
That's
and even
cool.
the ones they did well on, he's like, they got lucky on this play because a defender had made a mistake, and that's the only reason why that guy was open. But had the defender stayed on the guy properly, or they had defended that properly, there would have been no spacing. There wouldn't have been any design in the play to get the guy open. There wasn't any. And it was like this. He's like, this is the most rudimentary offense I've ever seen anybody run.
Do you guys know McElroy, the ex-quarterback from Alabama, and he does a morning show down in Birmingham.
Oh, really?
With Cole Kublik. And those guys, because Cole was a defensive lineman, I think, and then McElroy is a quarterback.
Yeah.
Right.
And they are, like you're saying, highly intelligent about how they break the game down and talk. It's, I understand kind of the high level, what the play is called, but then they're talking about all these it's like linguistic code.
Right. Yeah.
And you got to go sit and Google it. And go, what does that mean?
To understand what they're talking about.
It's fun to get that sort of that
insider image.
Yeah. The deep cut into that sort of thing.
Well, that's kind of like why you're here today. And so tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us your name.
Russell Richey.
Right.
I'm based in Birmingham. I work for Endeavor Business Intelligence. And that's
different than Endeavor Business Media. That's different than the magazines.
It's a different division, same family. Endeavor Business Media owns Ratchet and Wrench and owns Fender Bender. They also own 90 other brands across buildings and construction, laser, military equipment, manufacturing, fluid processing, healthcare, dental. It's a sort of a B2B media, I won't call it an empire, but it spans a lot. And the automotive repair group is one of the sort of the crown jewels of those properties, because we've got a lot of great audience and a lot of great brands and great content.
And so what do you do for that organization?
I'm a research director, so I will, charity starts closest to the home. I help our editors do their surveys that they leverage into article content or put it on their website. But then mostly what I do is paid research for custom customers. So we think of the sponsors that are in this this event. Some of them are my customers already, and we do market research for them. So we may be doing, if it's hypothetically a product development project, we might be doing in-depth interviews and showing key people schematics and mock-ups of a new product and get their feedback. And then other times we're doing things like survey research, where a company really wants to find out where they sit in the perceptual landscape of a market. So, and that's kind of simple math for, are you Coca-Cola or are you RC Cola? Are you, what is your top of mind awareness? What is your aided awareness? What's the willingness to recommend across the market for your brand versus others?
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. And so yesterday you did a presentation. Now, I had seen the PowerPoint a little bit earlier. We had shared that with the local high school because I thought it was really, really interesting. And as you were talking, the realization hit for me that we have something very, very, very unique in our community in like a big way compared to what you're talking about. It's very different, right? Now, I see exactly, I can replicate what you're talking about in the study you did in all these other communities, but I can also see that ours is a standout.
It's
in
quite
a
different.
Massive way.
Okay.
And so
there's a distribution curve, and you're all the 1%ers on one side, and you probably ought to be kind of someone that people should be modeling best practices after.
Well, so, and I've been telling our local school system this. I've been telling the local community college this. And we're going back and forth, and we're talking about ways we can accomplish that. So to give you a little bit of background, Watauga County Schools had a phenomenal teacher in there, and he retired, and the program went right. Now, the high school was built to have co-education classes in the trades. And so they have college courses and high school courses in the same facility. And so you walk into our automotive facility, it's got a dyno in it. It's got millions of dollars worth of tools. It's got a brand new Hunter alignment machine. It's got brand new Hunter tire equipment. It's got every piece of equipment that they're going to use. And it dwarfs any dealership you've ever seen. I mean, it is unbelievably nice. And so it was a shame because after he left, you saw that there's nobody in the classes. And so this teacher comes in. His name's Eric. And Eric comes in, and he's a Volvo master technician. And he comes in and he begins to take the program, and he gets people in, and then more people start coming in, and he's calling shops and saying, hey, will you be on the advisory committee? I'd really love for you to be on the advisory committee. Let's get some action here. So people started going to his meetings. At first, there were 5 or 6 of us, and then all of a sudden, we're having cookouts, and there's 200 people from the community at the cookout, right? And that's huge because most of these schools are not getting that kind of engagement. And I distinctly remember, so the CTE director at the time, she's now the assistant principal, was telling Eric, whatever you need, like whatever you need. Cool. You need to be in the newspaper. You need to be on a podcast. You need equipment. Here's the check. Here you go. What do you need? What do you need?
And was it down to his initiative and his
I think a lot of it
made her go, hey, or was she already willing?
I think she was really willing. She saw that there was massive opportunity there. And I don't know who got to her to explain that to her before he got there, but she saw there was massive opportunity there. And so he took this high school program, right? And he took it and he turned it from a class where you come and you read a book and then you go out into the shop for a while and you talk about what needs to be done and how you do it. He took it and he turned it into a functioning auto repair shop for the teachers.
Oh, cool.
And so the student runs through the entire process, exactly how you would speak to a client, exactly how you'd work on the car. And so they're learning not just how to work on cars, they're learning life skills and they're learning responsibility and they're learning that there's a safety aspect to this. We're not just down here hanging out working on cars. Yeah. There's life principle in this, right?
Sure.
And I will never forget, we're at one of these cookouts and one of the guidance counselors is there. And I hear somebody talking about the fact that technicians can earn $100,000 to $120,000 a year. And I see the guidance counselor's face just drop. And I said, why the facial expression? And she said, well, we've never sent folks down here that we thought would be responsible for this type of technology or had this type of potential. I'm realizing now that this is way more advanced than I thought it was. I thought they were just like turning wrenches.
Right.
This is pretty advanced stuff.
STEM all the way.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you started talking about your presentation, I'm sitting there saying, wow, we're really lucky that we have something like this in our community.
I would say you are in a minority from the overall population of academic, secondary institutions. There's for every story like that, there's probably a lot more, and you have to kind of. We didn't study the schools themselves. We studied the parents' attitudes towards the schools.
So, let's dig into that a little bit.
Sure.
When we talk about those numbers, what was and David can pull it up and put it on the screen if we need to, but what was the first slide you did? Because I just remember that first graph. It just went like straight down like that.
Yeah, that was the average number of kids, or the younger generation, going into an auto tech training program.
Right.
And over 10 years, it lost 30%, 3% year by year.
Right.
So not only is the curve steep, but the rate of decline is consistent.
Right.
So that's a problem.
Yeah, for sure. So we've long said, and up until this point, I think and there's been data out before, but up until this point, I think we've all kind of felt like a lot of this was that parents and guidance counselors were not telling students that the trades or that blue collar work was a viable pathway.
Right.
And I think that the school systems and we've got a local chamber and the executive director of the chamber was on a while back that focuses solely on skilled trades, right? They focus on workforce development. For so long, it seemed like they were solely focused on 4-year degrees. And they were telling parents you should teach your kids to work smarter, not harder. And I think we personally have some responsibility to that as shop owners, because what we did is we put guys in bays and we kind of abused them. We didn't pay them the best. We didn't take care of them the way they were supposed to. And the real issue is at the end of the day, there was very little opportunity. You hit 55. How many shops do you know that have a 401k? Yeah. How many do you know that have IRA plans? How many do you know that have full paid health insurance? Where do you go?
Sure. And
this is a very taxing job. You were talking about your personal shops that you use, and they're still back in the bays working, right? Yeah. And you have a relationship with these people for a span of years, and you watch their health decline.
Yeah, you're right. One of my mechanics went through a bad spell, and he was.
Oh, you're fine.
He was unable to work, and and it's funny because he has a whole a customer base that all know each other,
right?
And kind of viral in our own sort of small peer group. But everybody is like, "What's up with Sandy? He's sick. What are we going to do?" And oh God, do we need to go check on him and help him out or anything? And thankfully he came through it. But you're underscoring, it's longevity, and it's also that the ability of a good shop owner to create relationships with their customers,
absolutely,
that are powerful,
absolutely.
And that was kind of the sort of not the thesis of the PowerPoint was you guys as shop owners are the grassroots of this all, and your words mean something. And to get out there and be a good person in the community because people go, wow, he's an auto guy and he's a great guy. So that's what, and then just them talking, just big up your gig.
Right.
Just, and the best do it. And that's why those guys are the ones you have to make appointments with. You can't just drive the car off.
Absolutely. Well, and so when we look at that aspect of our industry as a whole, right? And we look at that relationship and how important the auto repair shop is to small American communities all over the world, big American communities, right? You got to have your car fixed. You have to have transportation. When you talk to these parents and you were doing these studies, was there any indication they thought that their children could earn a good living?
That was the misperception. There's a level of parent. There's a percentage of parents that do feel that you can make a great living.
Right.
But it was under 50%. It was about 40%. So 2 in 5 parents don't have that perception of the trade.
Right.
And, I'm not saying I'd be kind of silly to say, well, we wish 99% of people would say that.
Right.
But there's a big difference between 40 and 90. Somewhere in between would
suffice. I mean, it would make a big difference.
It wouldn't hurt.
Right.
For sure.
So one of the things that I noticed in the presentation, and David pointed this out, was that when looking at community college, right? Because like in North Carolina, if you go into an automotive apprenticeship or a skilled trades apprenticeship program, you get out and they will give you an apprenticeship scholarship to a community college. So you get a 2-year associate's degree completely free of charge. Okay. Even if you don't get that, community college is substantially less expensive than a 4-year school.
Oh, absolutely.
Why in the hell is everybody sending their kids to a 4? I mean, like that was a massive number. Yeah. Like it was like what, almost 50% are saying you need a 4-year degree.
Yeah. And the family or the kid are going to get in the whole $100,000.
Yeah.
And the kid's going to come back and live in his basement.
Right. Exactly. And work at McDonald's.
Yeah. That it's a disconnect. And I just, that's kind of, you got to fight the good fight and go, why? And I think there's what we saw in the data where actually younger generation are sort of attuned to this. They were more likely to believe that you can make good money in a trade than their parents are. But their parents are still pivotal in their upbringing, and so the parents are heavy influencers. But so the kids are out there ready to be molded. If there was just a less disconnect and the parents were kind of aligning with them, as you might say.
And so is there any indication of where parents get this information? In other words, like we know what the news says, and we know that they get information from web sources and the nightly news or whatever media source it is that they choose to obtain their information. How is it that we as an industry could better educate that consumer?
I think it's about awareness campaigns, and they're, advertising is to build awareness, through reach and frequency, and there are plenty of, say associations. Think maybe way back in the day, Better Living Through Plastics. Right. That was the plastic industry putting a lot of advertising out there to humanize and explain the benefits of plastic. It's not all bad.
Right.
And I honestly believe, and I'm not a marketer, I'm a researcher, but I hang out with marketers.
Yeah.
And I think the industry is going to have to put energy, effort, and money into awareness campaigns and just spell these messages out.
Right.
And it doesn't have to, you could see a 30-second spot in the during the NASCAR races, but then it should be not only top down, eyeballs on TV, it should be integrated with the shops themselves, the educational facilities and institutions, the big companies, and there are a lot of companies that sponsor the trades associations. I think or the technicians associations,
right?
But I think you're all talking to yourselves, in a way,
right? We're just not reaching the key demographic,
the kid or the parent, or just the general public. So that's just my take from the outside.
I remember Mike Rowe testified in front of Congress a while back, and he said, "I think we need a campaign for hard work."
Yeah,
and this country was really built on hard work.
Absolutely,
and so much of the infrastructure that we have and the world that we live in. I've watched for the past 3 days. David's so frustrated by this, but I've watched for the past 3 days them take this crane up and down over here.
Okay,
and I don't know if you've seen any of that, but I mean, these guys are out here 6 a.m. and they're putting the first crane together to take the other crane apart. And I've watched these guys. I don't know if you saw it this morning. They're standing out on the very edge of that crane up in the air, and they're just like dangling off the edge. And there's a lot of people who would absolutely cringe at the idea of doing that.
I'm afraid of heights. I look up there and go, wow.
Right. And so these guys are up here beating and banging and flailing around, and they're gonna take home $150,000 this year. Right.
Sure thing.
And there's a whole crew of them out here probably making as good of money as you could in any office in America. And they contributed to a project over here that made America what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a new building over here. There's a new apartment over here that's going to generate revenue and produce GDP for this community that wasn't there before. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I think that we've gotten away from hard work is important in our communities.
I will say, I think in a way, like the kids of today, they're, maybe in the 60s and the 50s and 70s, kids just grew up in their garage messing around with a car. And now what they do is mess around with their computer in their room.
Right.
So these kids are going into coding and software engineering. And that's, in a way, and someone who is not necessarily a software engineer building a brand new platform, but someone who's just doing the maintenance.
Right.
To be fair, they make really good money too.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
it's almost like those guys are the mechanics of the present.
Right.
In the way that it's neither good nor bad. It's just what it is. But those guys, I guess I'm from a generation where you go outside and do stuff.
Right.
Instead of playing, with a joystick or whatnot. But I do agree. We need to get back to that outdoors, that hard work.
Right. For sure.
Get a little sun on you.
That's it. Absolutely. What was the biggest thing when you looked at that study? Was there a moment where you said, "Holy cow"? Was there one particular piece of data in there that was just, or were you expecting it?
I try to never expect what to expect.
Right.
But yet I expect it, if that's a kind of a circular way
of
saying it. I'll be honest, what hit me, it was the lack of women in the industry. And I figured it would be a 3-to-1 ratio or 4-to-1 ratio, but it's under 10%, it's 9%.
Right.
And what was interesting is the older generations did not think that, it was a great opportunity for women, but the millennials and the Gen Zs are more likely to think that. And it's just kind of a changing of attitudes as the generations shift. But, I'm not a demographer, but I do stats for a living. Get 15% more of the women interested, and all of a sudden half your shortage is gone.
Right. What was the number on the shortage? What was
it? Was I want to say
26.
Yeah, so they needed to add about 120 per year.
Right.
To have.
I think the issue with the gender thing is that you're going to have to force the issue. You look at any country that pushes more equality in the demographic makeup of particular sectors, the more they force it, the more it ends up separating apart. And you still end up left to their own devices women are going to pick certain trades.
Yeah.
That's why most nurses are women, teachers are women.
Sure.
HR positions are almost always women.
Sure.
And you don't see women going into automotive repair or the oil fields or bricklaying or any. It's just, that's not what they want to do. Guys don't want to go into HR, although they can. Women can get into the automotive field. Were there barriers, I think, in the past? Sure. I think it was very difficult for a woman because they just weren't in there. They weren't in the industry. Now we're at what, 9% you're saying? I don't know that making that appeal is going to work. You'll be fighting. You're going to have to do 3 times the work to get the same result as you would if you just did the awareness campaign. The awareness campaign, I think, is like, that's it. He's right.
Yeah.
I mean, you just kind of said it like, oh, no, that's exactly what it is. You had the example of the Rolling Stone perception ad.
Reality. Yeah.
Because, hey, I don't think you understand who's reading our magazine. You think it's this. It's not. We have very well-to-do, older, influential people reading our magazine. You should take this seriously. You should be advertising with us. I think that's going to be critical. You don't see that.
Right.
What association is running? Become an automotive mechanic. You can make a lot of money. This is the industry, the future.
Yeah.
Like, cars aren't going to go away. The cars are getting more complex. This is more interesting work.
For sure.
It's not oily, greasy. I mean, it kind of is. It's kind of sort of, but not like it used to be. You're not rebuilding engines, right? You're putting battery packs in.
Yeah.
Who would take that role?
Nobody's doing it. That's the point. That's
would that be
point.
ACA? Would that be ASTA?
It should be somebody. It should be the ACA. It could be It could be on the Auto Care Alliance. It could be. I don't know. Look how much money and effort and energy is put into something like SEMA, and all these people get I mean, it's cool to go see SEMA, and it's cool to go see the cool technology in the cars and all that stuff, and the show's awesome, and Apex, all that whole thing is awesome. But there should be some aspect of it where, hey, we need the public to understand that this is what the industry could be. This is an opportunity.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's get some people in here. Let's get some eyeballs on this.
Yeah.
Ford is running that campaign. Be a Ford Tech, I think is what it is. BeAFordTech.com. But even then, I don't think they're appealing. They're appealing to
existing technicians.
Technicians. They're not trying to create new ones.
They're just singing to the choir.
Yeah.
Right. You got to get
and
out,
you're absolutely right. Everybody's just talking to each other. Everybody's just talking to each other.
And it was interesting, guys. After the talk, I was rapping with some of the guys in the audience. And so they were telling me stories about how they're having trouble getting technicians.
Right.
And so one guy was like, yeah, one of my competitors posts up at the coffee shop across from my shop.
Yeah.
And when the guys come over to get coffee, he chats them up and tries to recruit them.
I can believe it.
And then he said, but then what I do is if someone left my company to go to another company, I keep in touch with them, and every 3 months I email them and say, "Well, how's it going? You like where you're at? We miss you."
Yeah.
And so those guys, they're humping it to do these tactics to retain what's there, and if everyone put that energy out to finding
the new
by changing the underlying perceptions, they wouldn't be. I mean, it was kind of funny. It was like kind of spy versus spy. These guys trying to get labor.
As opposed to reaching out and looking for the new opportunity. So, let's say we want to create a campaign like that, because we're very much about solutions, right? Because one of the things that we've always said is that our industry has always just harped on the problems. Well, we've got a technician shortage. So, I mean, where do we start? Like, what's the next step?
But think one step ahead. Like, you do the campaign. Somebody that is out of the industry wants to get into the industry, and then they go down to Joe Schmo's Auto with the dirt floors. Yeah. And they're like, you guys are throwing this campaign out there with making it seem as though automotive repairs is one thing, but I went down and applied for this, and it's not like that at all. I'm doing oil changes all day long.
Yeah.
I'm not getting into this cool technology. Like there's a disconnect there.
And that may be the reality that has to, I don't know, that's tough to change. You're right. Because you invest all this time to buy brain share or mind share, and then it's ruined by walking into an environment like that.
Environment. Or, you get these flat rate shops that are built on speed, and it's not technical work. It's get the work done as fast as possible. And then not that it's not a bad thing. Like we still have to make money, but that's very much a factory mindset.
Yeah.
It's a production line, factory worker mindset. Shift starts at 8. The first break's at 9:30. The second break's at lunchtime. You get 30 minutes. Come on back. Put your clock in. Don't stop until you hear the whistle. And you're absolutely right. Like they're getting on their computers or their gaming devices or whatever. And software engineering is the most boring job.
Zeros and ones all day.
Yeah, it's just,
and they work it's insane hours.
And code, and then you run it, compile it, and something's broken. You have no idea why, and then you're like, you have to figure out you put the wrong squiggle in the wrong line.
455 pages back.
Yeah, but it affords them some flexibility. I have a good friend who's a software engineer. Every 2 to 3 years, he switches jobs. He will learn the new code that's out so he can go then apply for jobs. Because at the end of the day, like the fundamentals are all the same. So he's like, oh, I didn't know. I think the last one was Python. He's like, I don't know. I didn't know Python. So I taught myself Python. How long did it take you to? Oh, a few months. And I was entirely proficient on Python that I could write code and then go apply for jobs. And he would just when he wanted a raise, he would just go get another job. But he would sit in my lobby when he had a car that he got a Tesla. But when he had his Subaru, he would come and sit in my lobby. He's like, I got to bang out some work. And he would sit on his laptop. He didn't have to go into an office. He didn't have to be there at 8 o'clock and you can't stop working until 9:15 and then you can take a 15-minute break. That whole structure is no longer appealing. It's no longer like, I don't understand. We have to create something different because otherwise we're going to be fighting the UAW for employees. You see what I'm saying? Like,
I do.
What you're describing it's like that Gen Zer's dream. You just walk around, throw up your laptop, bang out some emails, do your job, go to lunch, go to the coffee house, then go work. And they may over the day work 8 or 12 hours, so they're putting in their time. How can you kind of shape shift that into your context?
It works to a certain degree. You can put some guardrails up. The issue is the person coming in to that environment because that software engineer is on a deadline. So he can work an hour today, 20 hours tomorrow, but the deadline's the deadline. You still have to have it delivered. Mm-hmm. And you can create something like that within a shop. The problem is you hire the technician, they've got the factory mindset. They've got the factory. Unless I've got the foreman behind me watching me all day long to make sure that I'm not slacking off, I'm going to slack off because there's nobody behind me barking at me. Mm-hmm. And they're like, and because they're not used to self-actualization. They're used to being forced. You have to pop, pop, pop. And all of a sudden you give them this freedom and it doesn't work.
Is this a demographic thing? So in other words, we know our clients. We know who would come into our shop. Do I have a client that is extremely focused on time and they want the cheapest price? What is their buying habit when it comes to auto service? And do I meet that client's demands? In other words, am I selling what they're buying? Does that play into what we're doing here when we go to market to the next generation of potential automotive technicians? that I have to find out what it is. And then, because if you think about it, they're in our internal clients, right? They really are our clients. They're just on the other side of the business. And so now I have to redevelop my business and redevelop my strategy to change, to offer. And I think we've been doing that as an industry as a whole. I think we've been shifting in some areas, not well, right? Or like things that have gotten better faster.
Bell curve, and we're at the 1%.
Right.
There was a couple of the sponsors out there that we have client relationships. I do research for them, and I was just shooting the breeze with one of them, and he was like, Russell, we get all the data about how many lifts they have and maybe how much throughput and how many, how the revenues and stuff. Okay, I get all that. Can you go find me data about what they do on the weekends? What their lifestyle is? What do they hunt? Do they fish? What do they do? And it was interesting to me because in a kind of a B2B context, it's just product, quality, price,
right,
and brand. But this guy was coming to me. He goes, I want to sell my brand in a lifestyle vibe and an emotional vibe, which is a real B2C kind of paradigm. And it was just, and I've heard that from other clients in other verticals that I work in. They're like, I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do your brand awareness survey so your semiconductor, where your semiconductor company sits amongst others, amongst electronic design engineers. And they're like, nah, we kind of know that. I want to know what are those design engineers doing after hours? What do they care about? What do they listen to in terms of music? And what TV do they watch? Yeah, it's really, and so you're getting into these kind of these prism data and that sort of that massively aggregated data that helps you create personas, and then those personas are what you build your marketing around. So you go every messaging decision you make is how is that going to relate to this particular persona. But what you're trying to talk to.
There are shops doing that.
I'm sure
Turbo Tim.
Yeah.
Cool.
He has created this whole brand and persona and this vibe, and it's my lifestyle aligns to his. Mm-hmm. That's why I take my car there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And does that help him with his technicians and his recruiting and retention and employee satisfaction? I mean, it sounds like it does.
All right. Yeah.
So
There's another dude down in, I think he's in Austin. I cannot remember that guy's name. He's all tatted up and stuff like that, but it was very much an Austin vibe.
Gotcha.
That's how he runs his shop. But he's got 12 technicians, and the facility does $4 million a year or whatever. He's absolutely killing it. But you meet him, and he's tatted up, and he's got like holes all over his face, and you wouldn't think that this guy is running a top-notch operation where but all of his technicians look like his customers. And his customers that come in all look like him, and they all have this thing going. It makes sense to want psychographic information.
Yeah.
So should associations be hiring you to do that? Is that what we should be looking at as associations? Begin to get that data. And does this start? So like we've got associations all over the country, and this one's in this state and this one's in this state. We've got a nationwide association, right? ACA. Should we look at saying, okay, these small associations need to get demographic studies for their area, or should we look at a broad level?
I think there's that data out there. I mean, how well it's integrated with other markets and other associations. What kind of data is it? Is it psychographic data, or is it just name, rank, serial number, children and household, zip code, that kind of stuff? I mean, we talk to one segment, parents, and they're one part of the picture, and there's all these other pictures out there.
Right.
And one would be knowing the psychographics and the mindsets of the average technician. And, of course, they're already in the fold, but you want to know them for the retention aspect.
Right. And that unbiased data, right? Because right now, the data that we get is coming from the top 1%. And we have people who are in our groups that are technicians, and they're expressing how unhappy they are, but they're probably the bottom 1%, have the top 1%, but we're not seeing an adequate picture of the bell curve. We're only seeing the bottom and the top. Yeah. Because they're the vocal ones. And so if we got the data from the ones that are bitching are still in the 1%, but they're on the lower end of the 1%. I would not look. I know I've met those technicians that are on the bottom, and they are not engaged in any way, shape, or form. They are just smashing things up left and right and just hopping from used car dealer to used car dealer to used car. It's just the only ones that'll hire them because they'll work for $15 an hour. But you get like an association like ASTA. Mm-hmm. We'll put Mike Allen on the spot. Let's do it.
Mike Allen needs to figure out a strategy. And because I don't think it needs to be nationwide, because you're right. That psychographic information is so important, and it's so unique. The message that will resonate with people in North Carolina will not necessarily resonate with people in Florida or in Kansas City. And so you have local associations like ASTA. Why not put together a campaign specifically to hit parents and young people like leaving high school about the benefits of going into the trades, specifically automotive repair, with an ASTA shop?
Yeah. Yeah,
don't just go to
that's a good idea.
To a segment.
Track them to the shop that will appreciate it, and it will be a payoff.
The top 1%.
But then it becomes a larger, because if you're an ASTA member shop, they need to understand that, hey, part of the deal here is you're going to meet certain standards, because we are going to be trying to get young, instead of going to a 4-year liberal arts college to get a worthless degree in dance theory, they're going to go and get a degree, or they're going to come and learn how to change oil and then tires and then alignments and then now diag work. And
so in some ways we've laid the foundational groundwork for this. The problem is that, especially with the apprenticeship programs, the curriculum for those and the schedules for those, it's very lax, and it's very difficult to build structure for it in a way that you can maintain, right? Because every shop's a little bit different. And then you have to teach the shop to be able to do that and administer that and make sure that it's actually happening. Because then
that becomes part of the deal, though, for an ASTA shop. Like an ASTA shop, and I'm just saying ASTA because we can pick on Mike Allen, but an ASTA shop is going to make a specific commitment towards creating a pathway for young technicians to come into the industry, because we are going to make a concerted effort to reach out to parents, because we understand that the demographic information's there, the psychographic information we understand. We can reach out to them. We can start funneling some of these kids that are going to UNC and racking up $150,000 in debt. They're going to become and showing up at your shop, Mike Allen, and Mike Allen needs to have something in place.
Yeah.
That meets a specific standard, because otherwise you can't be an ASTA shop.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Of course.
Yeah. Why put a lot of energy into getting someone ready to only disappoint them?
Yeah.
So make sure that it's reciprocated, and that because that's what you do. This famous adage is about the best way to ruin a bad product is to do a great advertising campaign. Yeah. Because everybody try it once and that's it.
Yeah.
No more. So one of the guys, a guy that has an MSO, and I was chatting with him, when he does his apprentice programs, they do the training, then the apprentice program, and then he says, we'll give you a $20,000 box of tools.
Yeah.
If you'll stay with us for 4 years.
Right.
And that seems to be, I don't know, I wouldn't want to call it, kind of indentured, you're stuck with them kind of bad in a bad way, but it gives some incentive for loyalty. And, those tools are expensive, right?
Right.
And so, and if you got to go, you probably have to take out a loan to buy the tools anyway.
Right.
But that was sort of their commitment and to making sure that these guys know we care about you out of the gate. We're committed to your growth and your opportunity within our shops. And we'll move you up. And, by the way, you don't have to pay for $20,000 worth of tools.
We're seeing more and more shops moving away from any type of technician has to buy their own tools.
Oh, really? Okay. That's a good thing.
And they're moving towards, hey, we can supply all the tools. The only you get a Seth Thorson. I think Seth pays for everything for his technician, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's got standard boxes that are mounted up.
He
on
wants
walls.
the shop to look a certain way, so he buys the box, and then and they're less likely to leave because it's like, well, what are you going to do? I'm not buying a $30,000 box to then put my tools in. Like, I'm stuck here. I'm going to be here forever. And so a lot of the dealerships in my area are doing the same, something very similar. And talking to those technicians, and you have to tell them that I'll buy you a box if you come and if you leave and come work for me, because otherwise they don't have a box and they have no way out. And your opportunity may be better, but they don't see it that way because I don't want to buy a box, man.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. So I think that's definitely going to be a specific factor to it, where that whole model, which is tool companies will lose their minds, but that whole model of, hey, I'm going to entice them to come onto the tool truck and put them into this debt where they're paying $50 to $75 to $100 a week for forever, buying these constant supply of new tools that keep coming out. So that 1% of shop owners run those tool truck guys off, and they call them whenever they need something, but the shop ends up paying for it. But some technicians want to own their tools, and I have no problem with that. So I like that. Hey, and that's what we end up doing at my shop. I buy something, but if you within a year leave, like, you can either buy what you haven't, that vested portion of it is discounted off the price, but you have to pay me to keep the tool, or you leave the tool here. Or after a year, you can own it. It's yours.
I think that the key in all of this is creating some type of structure that you can go back and you have a way. I don't want to use the term enforce, because I don't think enforce is the right term. I think, we've talked about with ASTA, for instance, we're going to start doing member onboarding. So they understand, for these associations, they have...
That is a good idea.
They have programs.
Who came up with that? Was that Mike Allen?
Yeah, definitely Mike Allen. We've talked about it on and off for a long time. And the reason being is there's a lot of programs that go on, and the way that the association, like member dues for an association, are not enough to pay the bills, right? It's not enough to pay the staff. And so what they do is they get you discounts from Advance Auto Parts, from Napa, from a credit card processor, whatever it is, and they get you fairly substantial discounts. And when they get you that discount, they get a percentage paid to them on program share. And so the thing is if your members use it, it'll save them a fortune. It'll save them a ton of money. And then it'll make you money, which allows you to do more for your members. Right. And so the key is that if they're not engaging those programs, you just don't have the potential that you would have otherwise. And so with ASTA, we want to make sure our members are aware of that. We want to make sure we take them and we set them down and we show them, here's how this works. And if you'll use this program and we get you signed up on this program and you're using this vendor and they're providing a good service to you, this makes you more profitable, and it helps us do things that make your life easier. Right?
Gotcha.
And so maybe it's something like that says, hey, if you're going to be an ASTA shop and you're going to participate in the hiring program, right? Because I don't want to, there's shops that aren't ready for that.
Right.
There's shops that aren't ready for that change. That guy that was in my class yesterday,
but I guarantee you he's looking for help.
Of course.
So what then?
Well,
you need help. We have a pathway, but you're not listening.
Well, but that's what I'm saying is that until they meet a certain requirement, until they go through some type of training, I've had all kinds of people email me about the podcast and ask me to put you through sensitivity training. And I think that there's a way to put folks into a program where they understand. And so there again, to me, that comes back to data, because if we know what it is in a documentable way that we can provide to shop owners that says, this is what technicians don't like, this is what's keeping them out of the industry, or this is what's pushing them away.
That's good. Yeah, what's driving them out?
And so if we have that data, now we can look at that data and we can say, okay, here we are, and here's what we're not going to do. Here's a pathway to fix this. And now you take your shops who are ready to commit to that, and they sign a pact. Hey, listen, we're going to do this, and here's what this looks like.
Sure.
I like it.
Larger companies do exit interviews.
Right.
And if there was a way to collect data for people that have left the industry,
right,
in a systemized way, maybe, and I don't know how you could find a sample. But
listen, you're the researcher. You're supposed to come up with this.
I'm thinking of the audience, thinking how to do it.
I've got a perfect strategy. I ought to mute his headphones for just a second. I'm going to find a stack of his business cards and just start passing around. Everybody that quits, here, call this guy. Oh, great.
Look, I'm having trouble recruiting marketing researchers. We are in a crunch ourselves. Right. So, I know that you guys have a lot of analytical minds in your trade. So
if you're leaving automotive,
grease monkey, survey monkey.
Right.
We can trade.
That's it. That's it.
But I think it's the association. I mean, my whole thrust was, the only advice I'm giving you is grassroots oriented advice. Now, yes, all of those messages, those proactive messages, could be put on side of NASCAR, side of town from Birmingham. So Talladega's right down the road from us. I put it on the hoardings around. It's great to be a technician. But then it also has to come from the word of mouth, and then just whether that's face to face or through social media. Right. But the messages, I think I don't know whether I cited my nephew. I'm not going to say his name, but my nephew's going to a 4-year college. He really likes metallurgy. He's got no business going. He doesn't care, and he's not doing very well. And it's like, my boy, man, you need to get your ass down to a trade school. And I don't know whether he'd be like a welt, but something using his hands. Yeah, he likes that kind of stuff. Why are you worried about? And there's nothing wrong with literature. There's nothing wrong with philosophy. Right. But why are you taking 2 years of these basic courses?
And you're because I've always said energy is a finite resource. Right. And so if you're going to school for something you don't like, you're going to school for something you hate, and you're basically wasting this energy that you have a limited amount of. If we were focusing that energy in an area which we can do something and we enjoy and it creates results in our lives, wouldn't that be more effective?
And 80% of degree holders are out of are not working in the field that they got their degree within 5 years. Okay. So the idea, but you still see the earnings, lifetime earnings of a 4-year degree holder versus somebody who just got high school. But over the lifetime, they make substantially more money.
I'm familiar with that sort of that dichotomy in the statistics. I don't know the actual numbers, but But I wonder, have they calculated that for an auto technician? And where does that fall in between the curve? I mean, is that?
But I think up until this point, up until just very recently, I don't think the conversation was never involved retirement.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It never involved that. Like, let's build wealth while you're here. That is a very uncommon conversation in shops today, but at least it's being had by some.
Yeah.
I don't think that up until just a few years ago, that was even a thing. Like maybe they had it, but they weren't forcing it or they weren't pushing it. They didn't have, he brought in a financial advisor into his shop to have a conversation with his staff. That type of benefit, I don't think was available necessarily for most of your technicians. They just came in to do their jobs because there was nothing else available. And it was that kind of story.
Yeah. What's a day-to-day existence?
A day-to-day existence. And I think you're right. I think maybe the numbers will shift. But I think even if you do want to get a 4-year degree, and you know you're not going to use it necessarily, that you are going to, there are schools, community schools, that are community colleges that are offering 4-year degree in automotive.
Sure.
And so if you want to go work on cars, go get a 4-year degree in that. It's like applied sciences, a bachelor's in applied sciences, whatever it happens to be. Like, go do that and leave with maybe $40,000 in debt. That's if you don't pay your own way. But $40,000 instead of $150,000 or $250,000, like your local community college will have a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree for you that will allow you to then, like your nephew, go weld or go work on metal or whatever, like whatever it is you want to do. But they have something available. But instead, they're going to a state school or a private university and getting a degree. And these schools are expanding their diploma offerings to the most absurd things because they have all this money coming in and there's all this grant and federal aid. And they're like, we got to spend it. We got to do something. We created a whole division on this.
You know what's really interesting about that, though, is that, for instance, App State, right? And we met with the chancellor the other day, and she said, "Look, we're recognizing a shift in Americans." And she said, "We're recognizing a shift in education." And she said, "We're focusing on things like nursing degrees. We're focusing on things like vet degrees. We're focusing on things that Americans can put to work and can go to work with these degrees even in the time that they are here." Right? They can begin to get a job while they're in school. And she pointed out about our community. And I thought this was extremely interesting because you just would not expect to hear a school administrator say something like this. She said, "I recognize that the students that leave App State University could not afford to live in this community." And I thought that's a pretty powerful statement because it's showing, we're in an affluent area, right? It's a fairly expensive area, but it's also showing that nationwide, the person that's coming out of school doesn't have the earning potential to go buy that house. And if rent's so high, you can't afford to live somewhere.
You got student debt piling up.
Right. I mean, eventually we've got to start having a little bit of a conversation here and say, maybe this isn't working. Maybe this, and I'm not saying anything bad about her. I'm not saying that she was, it's just that I think it highlights the need to reevaluate the trajectory of higher education in the United States today. I think something has to happen.
Yeah, unfortunately, nothing's going to happen until the parents do something about it. Until these parents go, you know what, I'm not going to send my kid to KU. And KU is like $30,000 a year. There's a community college a block away from my house. They offer 4-year degrees there. I can get my kid through that school for less than, for 4 years, 4-year degree. I guarantee you no flipping employer in this country, with the exception of maybe 3, will give 2 flips that my kid got a 4-year degree from Johnson County Community College and not from KU. They will not care.
My wife is a trauma burns nurse. And we're from Alabama. She went to Alabama and she hated the bowheads there. She hated that vibe. Right. We are Alabama fans, but but she she kind of flitted about, and then she said, "Okay, I'm going to go into nursing." She went to Jefferson State Community College, in Jefferson County, got a 2-year nursing degree, and within a year, she's working in the neuro intensive care unit with neurosurgeons. Yeah. And I mean, I used to go up there and bring her dinner, and she would go, "Hey, me and a couple of the surgeons are going to drill someone's head open. You want to come watch? I'll be like,
no, I'm good.
No. But it's to your point. I mean, she, and she retired from nursing and went into another career after 20 years. But to your point, I mean, she came out of school. It was an intense, fun environment that she worked in, and she made great money at University of Alabama and Birmingham's hospital, which is one of the it's a top 10 hospital in a lot of departments. And she didn't pay $100,000 to go to Alabama. She paid $10,000 to go to Jeff State College.
Right. And one of the things that I think back about a family member of mine, and Mike Allen and I have talked about this, as a matter of fact. I think back about this family member who has been caught in this never-ending cycle of schooling. And it was, they went to school for to be an ultrasound tech. And then that turns into another degree that they want to get, and another degree they want to get, and they continue to invest it. Like, they never financially move forward. They never get to that next level. And I was talking to Mike Allen. He was talking about, his wife is a very, very highly trained dentist and extremely proficient, probably one of the best there is. I think she's in pediatrics, and he points out, like, her training that she has to constantly go through, her fellows that she has to accomplish, and all of these aspects of this. Like, when we talk about a lifelong career, boys, this is there's a lot of work and a lot of money that goes into investing into this. And I think a lot of students, they start on that pathway and they say, wow, I want to be a dentist. I want to be a doctor. And then it all of a sudden hits them in the face and they realize, I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. I'm never going to be out of school. I'm never going to be moving away from this. This is going to be what life is now. And I'll make a lot of really good money, but I am going to invest a lot. We talked about, mega earner CEOs not having families and not having homes and not having a life because they wanted the opportunity to earn that. Well, the people who are going to reach those high plateaus or those high paying jobs, they're sacrificing more than just these little things like, I'm going to go to school for 4 years and it's going to cost me $100,000. The cost of that education continues forever. And I just don't think that a lot of people recognize that.
You lost me on that story. So they going to school for forever and having to pay to go back into the school?
Yeah. Well, they for instance, Mike's talking about his wife. Mm-hmm. And so she has to do continuing education that she has to pay for. She has to continually.
That's true technicians.
Well, it is. But we're paying for that.
Yeah.
In other words,
she has to pay herself?
Yeah, they have to.
Her own
they
way?
have to continue to train. They have to continue to.
Otherwise, they're no longer valid in the field.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
See what I'm saying?
I mean,
that sounds miserable.
CEUs, but they're always chasing another fellowship or some
to get to the next. To get to the next level, and to and I don't even think it's necessarily earning capabilities, but it's just like even a general physician has to continue to learn and grow and develop as they progress. And so there's a lot of money associated with that. There's a lot of training that has to go back into it. It never stops. Education never stops. I hated school when I was in school. I don't want to spend the rest of my life going to school. It would suck.
Yeah, but that's school in a classroom setting. I think, like, I hated school too. I absolutely hated every second of it. It was miserable. But like now I read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I watch a lot of videos. The stuff that you watch, these crane videos to learn about how these cranes work.
I watch videos about everything.
Exactly. Like, you're just learning to learn because it's fun to learn. It's interesting. And you just.
And that's a mindset. And that goes beyond your vocation. I mean, I used to work in B2C doing research for fishing lure companies.
Yeah.
And, a fisherman's journey is to always get better, and they're the best ever when they are having a good day. And when they don't, they're why didn't I have a good day? And then they're going back and watching the YouTubes, kind of deconstructing what they did wrong and whatnot. And it's and that's learning for their lifestyle, their avocation, their fun. But I think that mindset, I'm a proponent of that mindset.
For sure.
But it's that what you're saying, I think, Mike, is they are forcing you to.
Yeah, you have no choice. You will spend eternity forced to learn, paying to learn. That I think that's my issue with that. Is like I just don't think that would be an enjoyable career path based on that alone. Right? Like if somebody made me want to learn, I'm not going to want to learn anymore.
It's the same thing with automotive, though. I think the technicians that are interested in learning what's new, what's available, what new techniques are out there, what new technologies out there, they are the ones we want in this industry. The ones that are watching YouTube videos to learn how to better fix this car, and they're trying to learn. Sure. The ones that are apathetic, the ones that are just like, it's whatever. I don't want to go to training. I don't want to spend the time. I don't want to. The only like I have technicians that the only reason they don't want to go to training is because they don't think that training is going to intellectually push them.
Yeah,
they're like, I've already taken that class. And like, what are they going to cover in that class? They need that class to be like really hard.
Yeah.
And then they'll be excited to go. And they're like, oh yeah, I want to learn about that. That's interesting. I had Brandon, my tech, he goes, I think I need to take a Toyota evap class. I've been working on him for 3 years now on that.
Right.
He thought evap was the most boring, and it is, but it is a constant problem on Toyotas.
Right.
And it is difficult to diagnose if you don't know the intricacies of the system.
Just educate me quickly.
Evaporative emissions control systems.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
it's the gas vapor that's in your gas tank that the EPA doesn't want released into the atmosphere.
Okay. Toyota has a very intricate and complicated system to not only trap it, monitor that there are no leaks in the system, and then slowly introduce it into the engine to be reburned. And if there is even the smallest leak, I'm talking less than the size of a pinhole leak, anywhere in the system flags it, throws a check engine light. Customer just sees that the check engine light's on. Well, now you have to find that leak. Well, maybe it's not that. Maybe the sensor that monitors that leak isn't working properly.
Yeah, or the purge solenoid's leaking. Or
the purge solenoid's intermittently sticking, and that's what introduces, and there's 1,000 little variables in there, but the first step, you know what kicked my ass one time?
What?
First gen Prius evap leak. That thing has a bladder inside of the gas tank. And the bladder can leak into the cavity between the bladder and the outside and the outer casing. That's a space there that is monitored. And then if you leak out of the bladder into that, it throws and try to find that with a smoke test. Good luck. It's not going to happen. Anyway, there's so many small intricacies to that system you have to learn. And they're different from year to year and model to model. And he finally goes, I think I need to take an evap class. And I think PJ Walters teaches one, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
PJ's got an excellent evap class.
Evap class, yeah. Anyway, this was good.
It was. Thank you so much.